Hi everybody, it's David here from Anvil Logistics, or Dave, whatever you prefer to call me. This video is giving us the second year of trading for me. So I'll give you a little bit of background. As you know, I'm Dave, and I am a self-employed courier. I mainly do same-day work, and I have a little company called Anvil Logistics Limited. So I have a limited company and I am the only employer stroke director of it, and I'm an owner driver, so I own and operate my own vehicle and basically act a bit like a gun for hire, and I put myself out there as a same-day courier. I do other little bits of different types of work, but on the whole I'm a same-day stroke next-day courier because that's the type of work I prefer. I've been trading or self-employed, whatever you want to call it, since the 15th of June 2022, and I posted a video last year showing the first 12 months and how it went. I've basically been on YouTube since I started. So if you go back, if you subscribe to this channel, you can go back through all the videos that I've done. And you can see from the very first one how I started and how I've slowly, built the company. Well, when I say built it, I've not got any ambition to be any bigger, but how I've gone along and progressed. So these figures I'm going to give you now are for the second year of trading. So second year of trading, which will run from the 15th of June 2023 to this year 2024. It's August now, but to be perfectly honest, I've been putting off doing this because I didn't fancy pouring through my books and adding everything up, but I did it last night because the wife's away, and I'm gonna record this video now. I don't know when I'm gonna put it actually out, probably midweek, because I put a video out over the weekend anyway. So what I'll do is I'll run through the figures for you. There won't be any graphics coming on screen because I'm no good at that. So if you want to take notes, get yourself a little pen and you can take notes as you go along, or you can play it back, can't you? It's entirely up to you. So second year trading, including VAT, was £85,108. That's how much we brought in. £85,108 is not a bad figure, but you'll see how it becomes not a good figure by the end of it. Now, VAT is at around 20%. Well, it is 20%, so it's roughly £17,000 VAT that would come off that, because obviously £17,000 VAT belongs to the government. But because I operate on the flat rate VAT scheme, so instead of claiming that VAT on absolutely everything that I buy, like fuel, sandwiches, tools, I agree that I won't claim VAT back on anything other than big capital expenses. So the government say, well, you can have half the VAT. So roughly half of the VAT, around 10%, and these figures aren't exact, I keep. So you could say of the £85,000, it takes you down, less £17,000, takes you to 68,100, giving me roughly £8.5 grand back, which brings me back up to £76,500. I paid myself a wage, as in a salary, of £12,000 a year. Now, the reason why I paid myself £12,000 a year is I don't pay tax on it, because you're allowed to earn up to that much without paying any tax. So £12,000 brings me down to £64,500. And I also paid myself an extra £18,000, which is taxable, in dividends. But dividends are not taxed quite at the same amount that a salary is taxed. So you say total of £30,000, bringing me down to £46,500 in the company. So I've been paid, and I give myself 30 grand last year. Yes, I'm going to pay tax on 18 grand of that 30 grand, and all that money is taken out after I've paid it myself. So I give myself the 18 grand, take the tax out, and I put that in a separate account because it's personal income tax. And at the moment, that is in the Halifax, in an ISA, just waiting for His Majesty's government to say, oi, give us that money, and it's there ready. Major expense, fuel. Obviously, you're running a van, and this year's fuel is actually less than last year's, but there is a reason for that, but I'll go over it later. £13,402, and that includes the purchase of AdBlue as well. That brings me down to 33,100. Maintenance on the vehicle, so vehicle maintenance was expensive, £6,551. The biggest chunk of that being a replacement engine for the first van, engine, fitting, labour, etc. £4,618. Well, £19 really, because it was 18.99 pence. That's bringing us down to 26,500. Van repayments, that is loan repayments on the van over the year, was 6,600 over the two different vans I've got, but I'll explain that. Brings me down to around £20,000. I paid a deposit on my replacement van of £6,500. Brings me down to 13,500. Brings the company coffers down to 13,500. I put 270 quid road tax on the new van. I bought gap insurance because I've financed the van and I want gap insurance on it in case I have a claim and the vehicle's written off and the insurance company don't pay me enough to settle the finance. I've took out gap insurance because they will cover the difference and bring me back to the invoice price of the van. Not everybody has it. It's optional. It's £524 for my van, and I've gone for it. My insurance premiums for the year, and that would include goods in transit cover and public liability, were 2,900 quid. So now we're down to 6,200 quid in the company coffers. I paid an extraordinary amount of vehicle hire charges of 3,348 quid, plus £290 to replace the windscreen on the hire van that I had because I got a stone chip in it. So it's going down and down all the time. And I also paid £1,583.86 to renew my Courier exchange subscription. So we're drifting down now. We're down to about 4,600 quid in the company coffers over the year. Now, I've got other expenses, and I've basically cobbled all the other expenses together, and the total of those expenses are £3,749.50. Now, that is a combination of tolls, because you're using toll roads, hotels when I've stayed in hotels, food if I'm buying food on the road or buying coffees and things like that. And other little bits and bobs that I've had to buy for the van along the way. I might buy some new straps because they get worn out. I might buy some little cargo nets for in the van. Anything I've needed to buy for the van or for the business, so it could be stationery, printer ink, things like that. There was some IT costs in there as well because I had to buy a new printer. I also got another iPad because the other one was getting a bit old, so I had to replace it, and I used that to, you know, keep me books and also use it for the CX and things like that. So all that added up, and now we're now down to £869 in the company coffers. Obviously, this is added up over a year. There's always money in the company because it's always fluid. And then I also took out RAC business membership. Now, my new van has RAC cover, but it doesn't have business cover. And the extra things you get for the business cover, I wanted. So I decided to take out RAC business cover for a couple of £100. So we're not left with much there. I left about 400 odd quid. But because I purchased another van, I did get some VAT back off His Majesty, just under £6,000, which has gone back into the company coffers. And now that leaves us basically £6,500 surplus after all those expenses. So we didn't lose any money over the year, even with some of the disasters that did befall me. And we had some money left over. So now there are other expenses that the accountant will be drawing out of that, because obviously profit is going to be subject to corporation tax. Didn't pay any corporation tax last year because the accountant says it's worked, so I didn't make any profit. They know what they're doing. I don't. So I'm not going to sit here and try and boggle you with science that I don't understand myself. But basically, there are certain things that I can claim for because I work from home. So a contribution towards the running costs of the house can come out of the business expenses. The internet for the house, for example, the lighting, heating, because basically my office is my home. So the accountant will work it and work their magic all legally and hopefully make that so I don't actually pay any corporation tax on it. And if I do, it would not be an awful lot. And I do budget for little bits of extras here and there in the reserve account. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through the year and why certain things. So when I first started, I started out with this van. Which I purchased when I started. I thought it was a good van. It was just after lockdown, really, wasn't it? It was very difficult to get hold of a van. I really wanted a brand new one, but I couldn't get one. So I settled for one with low miles that was, fairly youngish. It was a 19 plate Citroen Relay, and I looked after it. I serviced it regular, but it let me down big time. And then in the end, I just got to the point where I'd been hiring vans because it was off the road so much that I've decided to move it on. And I did move it on, and in the end, I purchased this van. So this van is a long wheelbase Volkswagen Crafter. Her name is Betty Blue. And the first van was the Silver Dream machine. But alas, it became a nightmare machine. So I'll take you through how the year went with the vehicles and why it got so expensive. The Silver Dream machine broke down in its first, 6 or 7 months of working, and it was under warranty, and the water pump had failed, so they changed the water pump timing belt, and it ran fine for a bit, and then it went again, and it was done again. But it seemed okay for a bit, but then it was developing constant water problems. It was in and out of the garage. They were saying, oh, you need a new heater control thing, you need this, you need that. And I was throwing money at it. And in the end, they decided that the head had gone. Now, this garage, I won't ever be using them again. But let's just say that they basically played parts bingo with it because they didn't know what they were doing. They then told me that the cylinder head had gone, which in itself is not a catastrophic thing. But they said that they were going to have to take the head off, send it off, get it re-skimmed, and then refit it on the vehicle, blah, blah, blah. So in the meantime, I hired a van because obviously I didn't want to be off the road too long. And then I got a phone call after a couple of weeks to say that they got the head back. And in fact, it was goosed. The head was too badly warped and it wouldn't marry up with the rest of the engine, blah, 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 blah. And in the end, now bear in mind, I am not a mechanic, okay? So there'll be people who message saying this should have happened, that should have happened. That's probably true, but I'm not a mechanic, okay? I go by a garage I thought I could trust, and it turned out that they didn't know much more than me. The upshot was, it was decided I needed a new engine. So a new engine is what I sourced, and the engine came, they fitted it, and it didn't run properly. It ran like a bag of shite. It knocked. So another engine was sourced from the same people who supplied the first, and then that was fitted. This is going on and on and on over weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, the deal is when they supply you an engine, you supply them your old engine, which obviously happened. They brought an engine, took the old one away, and then rang me and said, you know, this head's never been off this one. They hadn't even taken the head off it, but what they had done is sheared the bolts on the head, trying to get it off, and then have just simply blagged me, I believe, into saying you need a new engine because they didn't know how to deal with it after that. But that aside, the new engine came, it was fitted, it ran, the van ran. But I'd lost complete confidence in the van. I was already thinking of replacing that Citroen before all of this because of the overheating problems and the water problems and things like that. So what I did was, when the van came back with its new engine with a guarantee on it, I decided that I was going to sell it. And I went to go for Part X, but the price wasn't really good enough. I don't think VW were all that interested in my van. But I managed to sell the van. Sold the van, obviously, was completely and utterly honest with what goes on. But it wasn't the Courier who was buying it. It had a good long MOT, and it had another engine with a guarantee, a full service history, and it had 115,000 miles on its clock. But of course, there was another lump in it now. But I just felt that those vans, those Citroens, they're not up for the job that I was doing. And I wanted to get something that I felt was more reliable, more sturdy. And I ended up buying the Volkswagen Crafter, i.e. Betty Blue, which was less than a year old and had really, really low mileage. And I bought it from a VW main dealer. It wasn't cheap, but I needed something I could be confident in. And that is what I've done. Now, the payments are roughly the same because I paid $6,500. Obviously, I got I sold the van for basically what I owed on the finance. But I have lost money, let's face it. I've lost money because I've had to refinance and everything. The company's had to fork out more money for a deposit. And instead of getting the van over a 3-year payment plan, I got it over a 4-year payment plan. And I don't think it'll last 4 years, even this one. So what I'm doing at the moment is actually paying double. I'm paying double payments because we're doing okay and I can afford to. So my plan being that if everything goes to plan throughout the year, the van will be paid for in 2 years. If it goes a bit slack, I'm still ahead of the game on my payments because I'm paying. I changed from a direct debit to a standing order so I can control it. And at the moment, I am paying twice the monthly payment. So instead of $550, I'm paying £1,100 a month. But the company's standing it at the moment. Last year, we paid out an awful lot of money due to the fact of the van. The engine, the hire charges, all of those things. Just think, I would probably have still had the silver van. It would probably be approaching being fully paid for, or fully paid for, because obviously I would have been paying extra on that. And we wouldn't have paid out all that extra money as a deposit, the $6,500, the $4,500 for the engine, and the, what was the hire charges? £3,348 of hire charges. Would have been over 10 grand better off, wouldn't we? But these things happen. We are in the business of running vehicles, and because I don't overspend on my salary or my wage, I always make sure there's money in the company. The company managed to ride it out without actually going into an overdraft. I didn't have to touch any of my own personal money to do any of this. The company could afford it. And that was the important thing. So that is how the year went in terms of money. I could have earned more but for the disasters, but disasters can and will happen. I don't have a mortgage. My kids are grown up and I've only got one of them at home who works anyway. So my expenses are not heavy. I have payments on a car that my wife uses, and then just your general household bills. I don't need a massive salary. £30,000 is enough for me. I could have taken more out of the company, but that was sufficient. And because of the issues with the van, I didn't. Now, if we have a cracking year this year and there's more money available, I might take more out. I might not. I don't know. But obviously, I'm mindful of the fact the more you leave in the company, the more corporation tax you're going to pay anyway, aren't you? So you can take it out and pay income tax on it. Either way, you're going to get taxed. That's just one of those things. There's nothing I can do about it. But on the whole, I've been pleased with the turnover that the company generated. £85,108, including the VAT, is decent. Obviously, I didn't work the full year. I had probably about 5 to 6 weeks off over the course of the year. A couple of weeks at Christmas, went away to Egypt for a couple of weeks, and had a lot of long weekends. So I probably worked out of the year, I don't know, 46 weeks maybe, which was more than I worked the year before. So I have no qualms about taking time off. I do my budget based on 42 weeks of the year anyway, so that you can account for things like that. CX renewal is expensive at $15.83, and I don't use it very much. I'm going to question again whether I'm going to renew it when it's due for renewal next year. I'll add up how much I did on it over the course of the year, and if it doesn't, if the maths don't figure, I'll probably not renew it. The idea being, I was going to use it to try and get backloads, because, again, if you've not seen any of my previous videos, and please check them out. If you subscribe to the channel, you can go back to any of the ones that you want to go to. The model I follow has changed over the time. So when I first started, I didn't have any contacts with anybody. I had no work at all. So the only work I could get was based on getting it from the Courier exchange platform, which is the biggest, certainly in the UK, platform that you can get work for as a courier, transport, or whatever you want to call yourself, van driver, courier, whatever. But there's work for motorcycle couriers, car drivers, and all sorts. But I would say by far mainly vans and HGVs, you know. So that's how I got all my work. I didn't know anybody else. And then as time went on, you build up connections with people that you do work for on the Courier Exchange. They learn to trust the way you work. They like you, you do a good job, they'll use you again. You build up contacts with other people who put you onto this, who put you onto that. And then eventually what happens is you stumble upon work away from the Courier Exchange where people just want to deal with you direct. Now, you can call them customers or work suppliers, whatever you want. I don't go for direct customers. That is, I don't go to a company who manufactures something and say, listen, I'll do all your deliveries for you. The reason for that is simple. I don't want the earache or any other kind of ache that goes with it, because I know people who do work directly for companies and they get mithered to death. The customers are ringing them at all hours. They're making extraordinary demands on their time. And I think you've got to be of a certain mindset. I've got a mindset that I'm happy to do work for people and deal with them direct for a fair price, and in return I will do you a solid job. I'll turn up on time in my clean modern van. I will secure your goods. I will look after your goods as if they're my own. I will wear all the correct clothing, the PPE that you're supposed to wear, the high visibility boots. I will not embarrass you by turning up at your customers in a pair of shorts and flip-flops in a van that's held together with hope, covered in rust. Open the door, it's full of shite. I won't do any of that. I will do a good job. I will take your goods directly to where they're going. I will not co-load them unless there is a specific reason for co-loading them. I'll do you a good job, and in return, pay me a fair price, and I am happy. And that is the model I work on. And then those customers use me, and I have one that gives me regular work. A lot of the time, a lot of the work pays really well because they trust me to do it. And I'm happy doing their work. And then on the days when they haven't got anything available for me, I'll try and pick some work up on the Courier Exchange, or I'll do the odd bit of work for people who know me, like James from Freddie Fletcher's. He'll give me work again because he likes to use people he knows and trusts, because he's been let down by some of the clowns that work on the Courier Exchange and basically abuse it. I'm probably old school, and probably people think, what's he on about? But at the end of the day, I'm old fashioned and believe that if you do a good job, all those little percentages add up and you'll get more work from it. Lots of people out there, they want to take shortcuts. They don't insure the vans properly and all that. They don't do it. I pay, nearly $3,000 a year in insurance for my van because I do it properly. It's insured properly for everything I do. Now, I do carry hazardous loads. I am insured to do it. I am licensed to do it. So I can pick up extra work like that maybe other people can't do. I've got the correct insurance for it. I'm also licensed to carry what's called known cargo. That's customs cleared cargo as well. And I have a waste license. I've taken the time to do all those things to just add up that you might get a little job here, a little job there, that adds up. And I think I've given myself a decent reputation of someone you can trust to do a job. There are companies out there who look for people like that. And there are companies out there who just want it done as cheap as possible and don't give a monkey's chuff who turns up, and then they wonder why they'll lose customers. But I don't really want to work for them companies anyway. I'm not a snob, but there are some companies there. I wouldn't, on that Courier Exchange, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. I've seen the way they operate, and I don't want to know anyway, so no loss for me. So that is how year 2 went. We made money. We lost money because a van let me down badly. But these things are going to happen. They're going to happen to you out there as well. I know of others who've had van problems. It's the nature of the beast. These vans get used every day, day in, day out. And you do your best to maintain it and look after it. I service my van more often than it needs to be serviced. I believe strongly that prevention is better than cure. But sometimes things just happen and there's nothing you can do about it. And, it can be, so all you can do is just try and increase your percentages by looking after it, making sure it's well maintained. I always clean it because I like it to show up and look clean and people be impressed. I think it's a lovely van myself, but I'm biased. I definitely would recommend one of these Volkswagen Crafters. I absolutely adore it. Now, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I'm not exactly a Twiggy. And I did find that Citroen was extremely uncomfortable to drive. It's probably designed for someone a tad less weighty than me. But the Volkswagen, it's like floating on air. It's like sitting in your favourite armchair. You drive from one end of the country to the other. It's got so many ways you can adjust the seat lumbar points and all this kind of thing, that you drive it and you come out feeling refreshed. Even old chubby chops like me feels as though it's comfortable to drive. The cabin is airy. It's a bigger cab. It's got a bigger load area anyway because it's a 4 metre load, but I think it's actually 4.2, but I call it a 4 metre. So even though it's cost an awful lot of money, I think it's worth it because I think it's very important that, you present a good front when you turn up. People have said, that's a nice van. Yeah, I keep it clean and I put new trims on it and things like that. But it looks good, doesn't it? So if you're a company that puts drivers, to work out to drivers, who do you want coming to do your job? Do you want Mr. Cheap, who's going to do it at, £1 a mile for a long wheelbase job, but he's going to turn up in a right rust bucket? He might be abusive to your customers. He might be rude. Or do you want someone like me who's going to turn up in the right gear? He's always going to be polite, even if your customers are a bit naughty. I'm always polite. I'll smile. I will go in representing you. I will not try and steal that work, which happens, but I'll go in as you. So if you're ABC Transportation, I'll come in and say, hi, I'm here, ABC Transportation. My van does have signage on it, but it's magnetic and I remove it if customers don't want that on. It just goes back inside the van. And I'll go in, I'm ABC, I'm here to do this. They'll see me, I'll strap the goods in, I'll secure it, I'll do a good job for you. You will get a good report if you chase it up and say, how was that driver? They'll always say, I'm confident, yeah, he's good, he was polite, he did a good job. My tracker's always on. I've got great feedback on the Courier Exchange. Even though I don't do an awful lot of work on the Courier Exchange, you can check it out, Amber Logistics, and you can see I haven't got one negative feedback. I always leave the tracker on. I always do a good job. So you can get, Johnny come lately at a cheaper price, who probably won't strap your goods in, possibly might damage it, probably will go off course, more than likely will turn his tracker off, and absolutely almost certainly will try and co-load it. Or you can get someone like me and other people that I know who do a good job, but we want a fair price. We don't want you to take the mickey out of what we earn, because we need to make a profit. We're in business to earn money. I'm not out to rip anybody off. But I want to earn a certain level of money, and I want my company to pay me a living wage that I can survive on quite comfortably and not have to dip into my own personal money to sub it. And that is how we got through last year. We managed it. It wasn't as easy last year because of the money that I paid out and the extra money I pay out, and it might happen again. I always have a contingency if possible. I put £70 a week away just to maintain the van. It used to be 50, I've increased it to 70. At the moment, there's £2,000 just in the van maintenance kitting. Now, I bought this van, and the first 2 services I've had done, 3 services I've had done, haven't cost me a penny, because that was part of the deal of buying it. But it's going in again in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm going to be paying for that one. It's going through to a main dealer because it's under warranty at the moment. It's going to have a service. It's going to have its brake fluid changed. It's probably going to cost about 500 quid in all. So all of a sudden, that £2,000 you've put away so far has a big gap in it. But the money's there just in case all the time. I always plan for it because I've learned by mistakes I've made and mistakes other people have made as well. This year, I know of at least 4 people who gave up the game. That's just who I know who packed it in because it was too expensive or they couldn't earn enough money. If you're thinking of coming into this and you think, oh, £85,000, listen to the figures, add them up, and you'll see there's a lot of money you pay out in this job, a lot of money. The fuel costs, I'll go back to them now because I said I spent less this year than I did last year. And the reason why I spent less is because at an early part of the year, I was doing work for one particular company every single day. It was kind of multi-drop work. And it was all based in the Northwest. So I might have 15 or 16 drops to do a day, but you're not caning loads of miles out. So instead of paying, 300 and odd pound a week out in fuel, I was paying about 150 at the most. So that reduced my fuel expenditure. But I also believed doing that kind of work consistently is a van killer. I think stopping and starting and going into remote areas with bumpy roads and climbing up curbs doesn't do your van any good whatsoever. So I don't do that anymore. The work did dry up. I was earning really good money from it. It dried up and then it came back and they asked me to come back, but I just decided that I didn't want to do it again. And, it's quite a young man's game. There's a lot of lifting and humping and shumping. And I think that, when you're nearly 30, doing the same day stroke next day work, medium to long distance, is more for me. I do some local work for my main customers, but I quite enjoy doing the long distance work. I don't do none of that tramping out business. If I stay out, I stay in a hotel. I try and get a cheap one, of course. And it has to be worth it. They're not going to stay at a hotel willy-nilly. There has to be work that links in that makes it worth it. But tramping out's not for me. I know lots of people who do it. I can't stand the thought of not being able to have a shower. It does me head in, I think maybe when you're a larger gentleman, you definitely need to have a shower every day, don't you? But that is it for the year's figures. If you've got any questions on it, please put them in the comments. I will answer them as best as I can. Those figures are genuine. None of them are made up. They're all rounded because I am not a forensic accountant. And like I say, there was a kind of surplus of about 6,600 at the end of all that. But there will be more things that the accountant can take off that, quite frankly, I don't know what they do. That's why I have an accountant, because they know exactly what I'm entitled to claim back. Well, certainly when it comes to when you're working from home. So I hope it's been of use to you. I hope you get something from it. I thank you for watching the channel. If you've never seen any of my other videos, please subscribe to the channel, and then that way you can go in and you can pick out any videos you like. There's loads of videos in there. Some of them are extremely boring, but some of them, they're quite useful and you might find it helpful. But either way, please give us a thumbs up. That helps the video get out. Consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Take care, everyone.